Good evening all, councillors and... Oh, am I coming out of someone's...
Sorry, it's just my mic was left.
That's slightly scary. I don't like hearing my own voice. Good evening, councillors and somewhat thin on the ground members of the public. For those of you who don't know, I'm Councillor Rachel Eden. I'm Mayor of Reading and I chair these council meetings. Before we start the full agenda, I have two announcements to make. As usual, I'd like to inform everyone present that this meeting is being broadcast live on the internet and will be available for repeat viewing for your delight on the council's webcasting site. I'd also like to draw councillors' attention to the Ukraine Benefit Concert that is coming up. This is a mayoral event jointly with Reading Ukrainian Community Centre and will be raising vital funds for the people of Ukraine, as well as raising awareness of Ukraine's wonderful cultural heritage. So I'd encourage you all who can to come along and please do promote it to others in the community. I have apologies for absence this evening from Councillor Keeping, and Councillor McGonigal, I believe, is attending via Teams. So thank you. Yes, I can see her initials there. So Councillor McGonigal, you're very welcome. Unfortunately, you won't be able to vote if there are any votes tonight. Are there any other apologies? No? Great. In which case we'll move on to item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No, thank you. In that case, minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of October. Can I sign the minutes as a correct record? Thank you, councillors. There are no petitions received this evening and no public questions this evening. So the next item is item 6. Councillor questions. I have had a request from a councillor that we try to ensure that all councillors are able to ask their questions. The only thing I would say to that is there is no obligation on those asking questions to make a speech with their question. They can either put the question as printed or ask just the question itself to enable all questioners to be heard. So without further ado, I would like to ask Councillor Keane to ask the lead councillor for Education and Public Health a question on making period products available in public toilets and buildings in Reading. Councillor Keane.
Thank you. Recently, Oxford City Council agreed to provide free sanitary towels and tampons in city's public buildings for women and girls to be able to access as when necessary. This should be a basic right for all those who need them. It seems very sad that we even have to ask this, but after 12 years of austerity and the economic crisis affecting household income so drastically, that we should provide this support to protect the dignity and the health and well-being of women and girls. Therefore, please can the council commit to providing sanitary towels and tampons in public buildings and toilets in Reading? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McEwen, can I invite you to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thank Councillor Keane for her question. Sanitary products have been made available in all schools and colleges in Reading under the government's period product scheme in England. This means that all state schools in the borough, including academies and further education institutions, can access support to provide products such as pads and tampons. This may include where individuals have forgotten their products, cannot afford products, or have their period unexpectedly. There is also currently provision for products in the civic offices ground floor facilities on an ongoing basis, which is currently supplied and paid for by corporate facilities within the building budget. I would encourage other building operators in the town centre, especially our retailers and shopping centres, to follow our example. Being conscious that some residents will have difficulty accessing or affording sanitary products on a regular basis, Ready Food and other food banks in the area include the provision of sanitary products in every toiletry bag requested by vulnerable and homeless women and girls. These partners also provide sanitary stock to other charities around Reading whenever they request it, including, for example, Rehab, who reach vulnerable women who are sexually exploited and are victims of human trafficking. This includes free sanitary products to homeless hostels and other charities that support vulnerable women and girls. The Council also supports partner organisations to ensure that those who would rely on free access via their school are still able to receive products during school holidays. The Berkshire West Director of Public Health annual report about workplace health incorporated action and messages about period poverty and incorporated recommendations to other local employers in Reading about taking responsibility and action to mitigate its impact on employees. The Council's public health team have incorporated the challenge into the health and wellbeing strategy for Reading. We also continue to support the trade union's Period Dignity campaign and promote it via RBC communications channels with the aim of reducing period stigma and shame.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there a supplementary? No? Okay, thank you. In that case, I will move to question 2 from Councillor Williams to ask the Lead Councillor for Environmental Services and Community Safety a question on the Council's response to knife crime. Thank you, Councillor Williams.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor. In the year ending March 2022, police recorded around 45,000 offences involving a knife or sharp object in England and Wales. Knife crime is an issue all councillors are concerned with, and you only have to watch the video on the council's website to hear the thoughts from Ollie Stevens' parents, Amanda and Stuart, to know how vitally important this is. Greens stand alongside councillors from all parties in the campaign against knife crime and want to see council and police work together to find practical solutions to take dangerous knives off our streets. Can the lead councillor update us on the knife amnesty programme initiated some 16 months ago? How many knives have been handed in, and has the programme been a success?
Thank you. Councillor Rowland to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to thank Councillor Williams for his question. The Knife Amnesty Bin Initiative was initiated by Thames Valley Police and supported by Reading Borough Council in 2021. 6 community knife amnesty bins are in place across areas in Reading to allow members of the public to safely dispose of knives and bladed articles anonymously. The knife amnesty bins are emptied each week. However, due to the nature of the collection process, the refuse team carrying out the collections are not able to count the actual number of knives from each bin. We do know that the amnesty bins are used regularly, although the number of knives collected is somewhat low. Nonetheless, there are no current plans to eliminate them at this time. In response to the new serious violence duty, Reading has established a serious violence steering group, which reports into Reading's Community Safety Partnership, on which I sit as vice chair. That group will oversee an action plan to respond to Reading's Community Safety Partnership's Community Safety and Serious Violence Strategy 2023 to 2026 with the knife crime priority. The Community Safety Partnership is currently in the process of establishing its action plan mechanisms to deliver that strategy, which was adopted at the Housing, Neighborhoods and Leisure Committee meeting on the 3rd of January this year. It is anticipated that there will be a focused knife crime delivery group involving the council, Thames Valley Police, Brighter Futures for Children, Health Services and Public Health, which will oversee the partnership's action plan to tackle knife crime. Amongst the bigger picture challenges that it will deal with, the plan will include monitoring the use of and impact of the knife amnesty bins. Additionally, I'd like to let you know that officers from the Thames Valley Violence Reduction Unit, Reading Borough Council, and the police have been working with local community groups to look at ways to remember those who have lost their lives or been injured as a result of knife crime, as well as inform the public and offer pathways to support. This has resulted in these organizations exploring opportunities to actually use the knives that have been collected from the knife amnesty bins to create an art installation with the plans to install that sculpture this spring at the Oracle Shopping Center. Whilst I can divulge no more, I have to say the designs that I have seen created by an artist who has worked extensively in Reading and has lived experience of knife crime, I feel are truly evocative and will cause each of us to pause and reflect on the devastating impact of knife crime within our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland. Is there a supplementary?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much to the lead member for her answer. I'm genuinely moved by the potential in the lead member's final paragraph, and I think we all look forward to seeing that. Could I just ask for some more information? If we don't know how many knives have been collected, how do we know that the number of knives collected is somewhat low? What are we measuring that against? And do you think that it's been a successful initiative in its first sort of year and a half?
Thank you, Councillor Rowland.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank you for your supplementary. It is difficult to know, although it's a process of actually picking up the bins and feeling that there is something actually inside. The numbers, you feel, I guess, not a full bin, and so the numbers of the knives have been somewhat low, but it's still perceived that they are used, and so therefore we will now leave it with that group and their further work to determine whether it's worthwhile continuing on. I think there might be some method or some reason for conserving the actual number, even if we did know it. I don't know whether that'd actually be healthy, but to know that they are being used, I think, is reassurance to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland. Question 3 is Councillor McElroy to ask the lead councillor for planning and assets a question on estate agent signs.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I understand that at the end of 2014, estate agents agreed to a voluntary removal and ban on signs, which had proliferated across so many roads for a 6-month period at the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. Almost all of the agencies complied, presumably under the threat of Regulation 7 statutory action, which would have seen the council applying to the Secretary of State for powers to actually ban such advertising signs. The situation has deteriorated since, with forests of signs littered across East Reading. Could we please try the voluntary ban again, or follow through with a Regulation 7 statutory action if it is still an available option? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Laing to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor McElroy, for your question. For context, the Town and Country Planning Control of Advertisements Regulations 2007 governs the display of advertising. The display of estate agent boards is controlled by Class 3 Schedule 3 of regulations, which relates to an advertisement relating to the sale or letting for residential, agricultural, industrial or commercial use or development for such use of the land or the premises in which it is displayed. The display for estate agent boards has express consent and usually does not need permission. The most salient points of the legislation relating to the problem with to let and let by boards advertising in parts of park and redlands wards are: 1. Boards may be displayed only on or within the curtilage of property to which they relate. Boards displayed elsewhere, examples on the highway or attached to street furniture, are unauthorised. I've actually seen them nailed to trees in some cases. Only one board is permitted per property, and the first to be displayed is taken to be the one permitted, i.e. all the other boards are unauthorised. However, in cases where a property comprises of flats, Reading Borough Council will allow one board per flat to be displayed, provided that each board clearly identifies the relevant flats. And I also think that's relevant to HMOs. 3, boards indicating that a property has been sold or let must be removed within 14 days of that date of completion of the sale or the signing of the tenancy agreement. Boards which do not comply with the above, including other types of board, example managed by boards, the boards displayed on properties that are not currently available for sale or to let, are unauthorised, and their display constitutes an immediate criminal offence. In view of the number of properties involved and the higher turnover of tenants, monitoring compliance with the requirements is difficult, and therefore in 2014, in order to limit the harm caused to the local amenity by the high number of to let and let boards that have been displayed in various parts of Redlands and Park wards, see plan below, it was on the other page in my papers. The council sought a voluntary agreement with the majority of local estate agents that boards in connection with the letting of residential properties will not be displayed in those parts of the borough. The display for sale and sold boards is not affected. If the voluntary action was not effective, the council could consider applying to the Secretary of State for a Regulation 7 direction to remove the deemed consent for such advertising within the target area. The council can take action if there is a recognised breach of advertising regulations. Example, if let by signs are displayed in excess of 14 days, but as the ban on to let and let by signs being displayed is in accordance with regulations was voluntary, we do not have any power to have these removed and can only ask the individual estate agents to politely take them down. Enforcement officers used to conduct regular monitoring visits of the area to see if the voluntary ban was working. And whilst doing that, gathering information on possible breaches of regulations. This stopped in 2020. However, given the concerns raised by officers have confirmed that it may be timely to contact the relevant lettings agencies again to refresh the agreement.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Is there a supplementary?
Yes, please. Thank you for outlining what the council could consider, that the council can take action, that it may be timely. Could you be more specific on what the council actually intends to do rather than just listing off what it could do with the I suppose, the powers it could apply for?
Thank you, Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor McElroy, for your supplementary question. The meeting, local Labour councillors in Redlands Ward in particular have been trying to sort out this problem for years. One of the first meetings in this civic when we moved here in 2014, long before my time, was Councillor Page, who arranged the meeting with local agents. And I think Councillor Gavin was also involved in the process. It was successful, you know, the success of that initial campaign has worn off. Councillor Cross, initially before Christmas, contacted us to see whether there's anything going on. He also did his own detective work, shall we say, Columbo style. He counted up 70 signs, yeah, with the agents involved, a list of addresses. He then informed officers who are putting together a template to follow a follow-up letter, which will be hopefully be sent to these officers, reminding the agents of their obligations in the original agreement, and possibly, well, I would think almost certainly, new agents to get them to commit to it. So that's where we are. On enforcement, Secretary of State, really, we can't even get him to look at our Article 4. So he's got other stuff tied up. He may get other civil servants to look at it. It is an option, I suppose, technically, but yeah, that's it. That's an honest answer. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. I'm not seeing other indications on that. So, although I know there's a lot of interest in that issue. Question 4 then to Councillor Singh, to ask the lead councillor for Environmental Services and Community Safety a question on accessibility of the town centre to pedestrians.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Accessibility is the key to an inclusive town centre. People with disabilities are excluded further if the town centre is designed and planned poorly. Disability groups members invited me for a walkabout in the town centre, and it's quite frustrating to see firsthand how elderly parents with pushchairs and wheelchair users struggle at the crossing, particularly on St. Mary's Butts near the Metro Bank, where buses are given priority over pedestrians by this council. Besides this, if not for the shops, there are no easily accessible disabled toilets in the town. I visited Basingstoke Town Centre. They not only have easily accessible disabled toilets and safer crossings, but a library and a swimming pool in the town centre. Can the council leader confirm he's aware of these issues and what measures he thinks should be put in place in Reading Town Centre to improve access for elderly and visitors with disabilities?
Thank you, Councillor Singh. And this question has been allocated to Councillor Rowland to answer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank Councillor Singh for his question. For clarity, these issues fall primarily within my portfolio area, and your question has therefore been allocated to me. The council is aware of concerns that have been raised in the past regarding the Target Junction. That's the intersection to which Councillor Singh refers. Changes were made to the Target Junction at the September 2015 Traffic Management Subcommittee, and this council is rightly proud of its records of consultations and engagement undertaken to reach that decision. A trial switch-off period was in operation during the consultation to enable evaluation and the public feedback. 2 special access and disabilities working group meetings were held, Regional and national groups fed into the decision process, and a special on-site workshop session was attended by a large number of local organizations. I attended that on-site consultation myself in 2015 as a trustee of the Reading Association for the Blind. The on-site workshop session was particularly useful, and as a result, the signal crossing on the western approach was retained, along with the formal pedestrian crossing on that side and the narrowing of the southern junction. The junction is within a 20-mile-per-hour zone, and there are also traffic restrictions when approaching this junction, particularly during peak times. It is also a raised junction, which provides at-grade level pedestrian crossings, and recent changes to the highway code further support pedestrians crossing at this location. The adopted system has shown that pedestrians and vehicles can safely use this junction without the aid of all the previously cluttered junction controls. Councillor Singh, I would ask that you ensure all disabled residents know they can easily raise their concerns at the Council's Access and Disabilities Working Group meeting, which is open to the public. I sit as vice chair of that group and have been involved in that meeting for the past 3 years, and I cannot recall any concerns raised about the intersection at the meeting during my time. With regards to Councillor Singh's concern over the provision of accessible toilets in the town center, he should know that both Broad Street Mall and the Oracle have fully compliant changing places, accessible facilities, which cater for the broader needs of the disabled population, providing more space and extra features. Toilet provision across the borough was the subject of a review with decisions made at Policy Committee in 2021. No town center provision was removed under that review, and where possible, investment was made in the existing provision. Section CC7 of our local plan firmly sets out this council's policies to ensure accessibility for our public realm and buildings. Last year, the Access and Disabilities Working Group arranged a town center walkabout with our street care services manager, myself, and a large group of disabled persons using wheelchairs, mobility scooters, walking canes, and sight dogs, which made our way all around the town center, highlighting specific issues of concern. From that meeting, a working list was created that is constantly seeing requests completed. I received updates regularly on that list, and we will be looking to have a follow-up session again this spring. I'd be happy to be contacted by yourself and any residents with concerns that are more than obviously welcome to come and join us for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland. Is there a supplementary?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Councillor Singh?
Thank you for your reply, Councillor Ronald. In your reply, you mentioned no town center provision was removed under that review, and where possible, investment was made in the existing provision. Can you please explain which existing provision? Thank you.
Councillor Rowland?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry, Councillor Singh, I do not have that information to hand at this time, but I will be happy to get that for you and to send you an update on that. But I do not have that information to hand. Thank you.
So, councillors, that concludes councillor questions. Thank you for your questions and the answers. We will now move on to the next item of business, which is a report on the council tax local reduction scheme and calculation of the council tax base for 2023 to 2024. Councillor Brock, I invite you to move the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is impossible to do justice to the exhilaration of setting the council tax base in a maximum speech of 5 minutes, but I will try my best. I should firstly say that the title of the report is incorrect and should say 23 to 24 rather than 22 to 23. So setting the base is a very important part of our budget planning process. It's therefore largely a technical report. Clearly very important that we do not overestimate the base, or we'd have a deficit that would require recovery. But also you would note, as I draw attention to every year, that the vast majority of people here in Reading live in a property that is band C and below. So when we engage in the sort of band D council tax comparisons, as we understandably do nationally, it of course is not as pertinent to people in Reading as it might be elsewhere, where band D is far more typical as the modal property. We enhanced last year our council tax reduction scheme, which has been successful. It's helped a great many residents, around 8,000 families across the town. We will not be amending the scheme as such this year, but we will look to further protect those on the lowest incomes in our budget next month, just to give a trailer for that. The other thing I'd like to draw attention to at this stage, Madam Mayor, is that there is pending legislation, just went through a reading in the House of Lords, that will allow us to change the way in which we apply the empty homes premium here in Reading. So at present, we're able to charge a 100% premium after a property has been empty for 2 years. The new legislation proposes the ability to do that after a single year. So we will bring forward a proposal once that legislation is enacted to allow us to implement that change from 2024, the soonest we would be able to do so, because I think that is in line with what we would all want here, which is to incentivise empty homes back into use, providing homes for residents here in Reading. We're also allowed within this new proposed legislation to impose a premium on second homes. And I know that Reading might not be like the Cornish Riviera, full of such second homes, but nonetheless, I think it falls under the same rubric. It gives us a reason to incentivise people to provide homes for residents in Reading rather than for use as second homes. So just to draw attention to a few things that are in the pipeline, I have nothing further to add, and I move the motion as printed.
Thank you, Councillor Brock. Councillor Terry?
I second the motion, reserve my right, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Terry. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Okay, Councillor Brock, you can sum yourself up if you like.
Nothing to add.
Okay, I'll put it to a vote then. All those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. The next item of business is a report on the adoption of the Central and Eastern Berkshire Joint Minerals and Waste Plan. Councillor Leng, I'd like to invite you to move this motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the one you've all been waiting for, no doubt. Madam Mayor, and good evening, colleagues. The adoption of the Central and Eastern Berkshire Joint Minerals and Waste Plan, aka CEB JMWP, for the purpose of this briefing, I will call it the plan. Bracknell Forest Borough Council, Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead and Wokingham Borough Council have already adopted this plan. As of tonight, with colleagues' support, hopefully so will Reading Borough Council. We know that reliable and planned supply of minerals and aggregate is vital for a sustainable development and a sustainable environment. As unitary authorities, we have the statutory responsibility for planning future production of minerals and for the management of waste disposal. This is an area of planning which is strategic in nature, as such is better planned using a larger geographical area and considered better than going alone, as so to speak. Although I recognise that West Berks, South Oxfordshire and I think Slough in effect go it alone, although they have cooperation with many other authorities, including ourselves. This plan, if adopted, sits alongside our own local plan. Both will have equal material consideration in determining future planning applications. As with the local plan, both will be reviewed, monitored and updated to adapt to the change in circumstances. Our current local plan has itself started the review process. I think there's a report coming to set in March. And when we throw in the changes to the national planning policy and the current consultation process with that, evolved around housing land supply changes to how we calculate housing need, build out rates, throw into that as well, beautification, refusing applications on ugliness, inshore and offshore wind, a total of 58 questions surrounding the national planning policy framework. You can see why these plans need to have a built-in ability to adapt at all times. Glossary and acronyms is on 187. It was a must for me. Don't beat yourself up about having to keep looking them up. If our shadow foreign secretary can misremember what NATO stands for, we can forgive ourselves some slippage with this. The process for putting this plan together began back in 2016. It's been quite a journey, quite a lot of scrutiny, including 4 consultations, I think a mini consultation on aggregate excavation, plus public hearings. And the fact that 3 unitary authorities have already adopted it says it's a pretty robust plan. and it's had a lot of scrutiny. The plan sustainability, the plan sustainability appraisal assesses that overall proposals have a positive effect or at least a neutral impact. Some identified sites would have the potential to negatively impact biodiversity and nature conservation, water quality, landscape and ground conditions, and also including flood risk. But these issues could be addressed by mitigation via the application process or development management policies. Obviously, the plan takes a very collaborative approach amongst the authorities, but it's only human. It's what the residents would do, and we tend to focus on the waste management sites situated within the Reading or Reading's immediate area. This is basically because we have some influence and direct control, either as a council or as a planning authority. So in reference, I'll just give you an idea of what I've been looking at. So in reference, starting on page 160 or 265 of the actual pack, there's a map, and it's of Richfield Avenue, Tessa Road, and it's been designated potential site for Cat 2, Cat 3 waste site. Those definitions of categories are in the report pack, you know that though. And obviously I was looking at the drawing, and it still shows the golf range, golf driving range, and it doesn't yet show our magnificent new swimming pool, the second one that we're building for the residents of Reading. And it doesn't show yet the little dashed line where the secondary school is going. I think that's also a pat on the back for Reading Borough Council. And that's with my assets hat on, by the way. So as I say, things adapt. We could talk about other things, chalk and clay, romantic visions of gravel barges sailing down the Thames if barges do sail. I think the planning of soft sand, as that little joke's probably gone past its sell by date by now. We've used that so many times, so that'll be the last time we've got a shortage of soft sand, by the way. Local aggregate assessments, page 168, Reading's population growth, which is important, comes up in planning all the time, 4,000 people per square kilometres, and a favourite of mine, the over commoditisation.
I know I always wind you up, but could you wind up?
Am I? Am I? Oh, sorry. You
can sum up, Vicky.
I move the motion as printed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Well done. It's several hundred pages in 5 minutes. It's difficult. Councillor Hornsby-Smith, do you wish to speak or second?
Yeah, I do. I'll try and get it under 5 minutes if I can. Some time ago, the Tory Chancellor, Geoffrey Howe, once complained that he'd been sent out to defend some years ago, to defend policies with a broken bat, a speech that eventually led to the downfall of Mrs. Thatcher. Well, whilst that's obviously a tragedy, but as a responsible council, we don't want ever to be in that position of facing a planning appeal for speculative minerals and waste development with our only defence being policies that were developed and saved from the mineral and waste plan that was first adopted by Berkshire County Council in 1995. That's why, back in 2016, we formed a partnership with 3 other unitary authorities to develop this new plan to set out the amount and type of minerals the partnership area would need, to identify specific sites and preferred areas of search, and to identify how we would dispose of waste. Additionally, as Councillor Lang has pointed out, the plan built in flexibility and review to allow for changing circumstances. It also acknowledges the scale and type of materials and minerals that would need to be imported. It establishes a land bank to ensure continuity of supply and the need for restoration and aftercare plans. An extensive set of consultations was completed and modifications were made to take on board strong references to climate change, protection of the environment, water quality, and emphasising the importance of local sourcing and use of recycled materials where possible. The submission draft was approved by this council in 2021, and in 2022, following the examination in public, the inspector approved it for adoption, subject to further minor changes. Wokingham, as Councillor Lang has said, Wokingham, Maidenhead and Windsor and Bracknell Forest have already adopted the plan in the last few weeks, we're being asked to adopt it tonight. Chair, this is a sound plan. It provides protection for our environmentally sensitive areas. It sets out our preferred areas of search, supports our climate objectives, and in Reading's case, there are no mineral sites proposed and only preferred areas of search for future possible small waste sites. Were any to come forward, they would be determined against this part of the development plan and the adopted Reading local plan. So the alternative is not to adopt the plan, to destroy our partnership arrangements and rely on policies which are out of date and superseded. And that's why I second the recommendations to adopt the plan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hornsby-Smith. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Thank you very much for sharing your plans with us this evening. You mentioned Richfield Road. I have several friends who live near Richfield Road. I lived near there myself. Could you tell us a little bit more just about what you're planning to do around Richfield Road?
So it's a
Richfield Avenue. So Richfield Avenue. Sorry.
It's a speech, not a discussion. Is that the end of your speech? Sorry, Councillor. Thank you.
Yeah, just
sorry. Does anyone else have anything they wish to? Any other speeches they wish to make? Any other councillors wish to speak? No. In which case, I will ask Councillor Lang to sum up, and if you're able to respond to what was more a question than a speech, in your summing up.
Yeah, thank you for you're asking for clarification, aren't you? So yeah, Richfield Avenue. I thought I would reference the map because I was expecting most people that picked up this quite a large file, they would automatically, as no doubt when it was looked over in other councils, they tend to focus on the areas that would affect them. So I was worried that people would look at the map, look at the area that had been chosen and see that it was slightly out of date and wouldn't have taken into consideration. Maybe there was a secondary school going to go there. There was a new swimming pool. You know, I've got to plug in for the swimming pool again. And that's why. But these maps are purely for reference. And of course, any future allocation on a preferred site would go through the democratic planning process and be judged on its merits. So that's it. So there aren't any plans for anything. It's just been allocated as a preferred site, the industrial site for grade 2 and grade 3 waste management, the definitions of which are in the report. I will look them up later and give them to you. I've got post-it notes all over these. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. I will put that to a vote. All those in favour, please show. Okay, I think that's also unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We now move on to the next item of business, which is a report on the councillors' allowances scheme for the next 4 years. Councillor Brock, I invite you to move the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very much a matter-of-fact report. We revised our scheme substantially in 2019-20 municipal year. This report simply seeks to extend those arrangements, maintaining things exactly as they are with that index linking between councillor allowances and officer pay awards. It does provide the uplift to carers allowances for councillors in order to ensure that we continue to meet the real living wage. I did want to thank the remuneration panel's members for their work, their consistent work, and we're very appreciative, I'm sure, on all sides of the chamber for that. But nothing really else for me to say, so I move as printed.
Thank you.
I second and reserve, Madam Mayor.
Succinct as ever, Councillor Page. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? No. In that case, I will put it to a vote. All those in favour? Oh, sorry. You can sum yourself up if you like. Any abstentions? It's 5 abstentions, 6 abstentions. Sorry. So, and was there any? There was any against? No. So 6 abstentions. Thank you. Councillors, the meeting is not yet over. Councillors, thank you. We're now moving on to the last item of business, which is a motion by Councillors. Thank you. This is a motion by Councillor Singh on antisocial driving and road safety. So, Councillor, Councillor Singh, I would like to invite you to speak, and no one else, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Government statistics shows Reading Road sees nearly 250 traffic crashes in a year, highest in the Berkshire County. Tonight, the Conservative group put forward this motion on road safety, which we believe is important. We believe in this chamber we should discuss and debate and pass motions which is directly related to Reading residents. Road safety impacts all walks of life. And in recent time, we have seen some tragic accidents on Reading roads. One elderly couple, Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins, were killed in Tilehurst by a collision with a car. Both were retired teachers and tireless fundraisers for the community. In another tragic incident, a 19-year-old teenager, Sheldon Lovecock, lost his life. He was riding an electric bike on Pierces Hill, Tilehurst, and met with a collision with a van. A life lost on our road is life too many. Tonight, we have an opportunity to gather a cross-party agreement to improve road safety, to work more closely with the police, to spread awareness in our community across the borough for better. Although antisocial driving is a matter of police, but as a council, we have a duty for road safety. We, as a council, needs to ensure our pedestrian paths and road infrastructure is proper. For this, there is road safety performance indicators, an excellent tool. There are indexes and benchmarks readily available which council can use to help early intervention. This should be published, monitored, and reviewed annually on our website. I also think many of us receive a lot of casework for off-bike roads and e-scooters from our residents for the nuisance they cause. This motion calls for taking initiative and tackling these issues. This motion also calls to participate in a Road Safety Week annual campaign to spread awareness. Let me be clear, these steps do not cost money to the council. In fact, there are road safety funds which council can easily access it. This requires leadership. This requires desire to save lives on Reading roads. So any argument made under cuts would be futile tonight. To end, I know this motion is proposed by a conservative group. I ask you to put the politics aside. I ask you to put yourselves in the shoes of a family member, of a friend, a neighbor, someone who lost his life on the road, like Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins, like Sheldon Lovecock. I ask you to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor Cornell, do you wish to second?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I second this motion and reserve my right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cornell. I saw Councillor Page indicating.
Madam Mayor, I'll have an amendment. Would be grateful if it could be circulated.
Thank you. Do you have a
As
seconder?
it's similar in length to the resolution.
Do you have a seconder?
Well, right.
Yeah, I see Councillor Rowland indicating. Sorry.
I was going to ask for a few seconds for people to read it.
Of course, I just wanted to check you had a second.
Right.
I know you do.
I think they need it first, Michael, not us. We've seen it. Yeah. Right. Yes. It's a single side.
So yeah, we'll take a short pause to allow all councillors to read the amendment.
I'll have a. Thank you. Make sure it's the version I sent out. Mentioned the scooters bit, didn't he?
Councillors, in a moment I'll call Councillor Page to move his amendment. I'm not sure, there may be some councillors who've not experienced an amended motion before. So to explain the process, we're going to debate the amendment, and then if you wish to speak on the amendment, please indicate. You are entitled, if you wish, to speak on both the amendment and the original motion, which applies whether the amendment is won or lost. And I will ask councillors who wish to speak on the amended motion after we have voted on the amendment. So I'll give you the opportunity to indicate at that point. So I'm assuming that it's after the first. You have to ask the mover.
Councillor Page, can I just confirm that we're talking about when you see delete all after the council, you mean in terms of the resolution, that not the preamble? Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I think it's the very first line. Right, so I hope all groups have had a chance to review the various actions in the amendment. So I will call on Councillor Page to speak and request that we could have quiet, please. Thank you. Well,
Madam Mayor, we all share concerns about speeding accidents and fatalities in the borough. If Councillor Singh were a member of the Traffic Management Subcommittee, and I know he's only got a few more weeks on the council, but he would have learned that all the points in the amendment have been regularly addressed at those meetings. And this amendment is an attempt to take all the points in Councillor Singh's original resolution and to focus them on areas of action that will hopefully be productive. Last week's meeting with the PCC and the Chief Constable addressed a number of issues around enforcement and our long-standing policy to take over speed enforcement from the police. And cuts, Councillor Singh, through you, Madam Mayor, are very much an issue because they've reduced the ability of the police to offer any meaningful level of speed enforcement within the borough. They therefore focus only on the priorities within the Thames Valley Police and Hampshire areas of reducing accident or tackling accident black spots. We as a council, with the willingness and the ability, would like to take over speed enforcement in the same way as we took over parking enforcement from the police over 20 years ago, and we could deliver an effective level of speed enforcement in the same way as we deliver an effective level of parking enforcement. And therefore, we are requesting to write to the Home Secretary and urge a transfer of the appropriate powers. That would be in line with London Council's policy as well. Councillor Singh didn't mention e-scooters in his speech, but we addressed that here. It is the failure of this government, bogged down in internal strife and bickering, to offer any leadership whatsoever around the issue of e-scooters. We had 3 transport secretaries last year, Anne-Marie Trevelyan promising a bill in the autumn. We had Grant Shapps before her, and we now have Mark Harper. And what do we get? We just see chaos in government and no action on this area, which desperately needs national regulation so that the police and local authorities know where we need powers and where enforcement needs to be deployed. In terms of accident data, Councillor Singh, in a number of questions that I've answered that Councillor White has posed, I have explained on a number of occasions the sensitivity around putting any more information on our website than is already available via the national website that is referenced in this amendment. And we have a huge amount of information already available. And I can assure you that in terms of every accident that takes place in the borough that involves the police, whether there be fatalities or injuries, the police follow up with a detailed report to this authority, which contains recommendations for action that they think we should consider. If those reports are received, they are then brought suitably anonymised to the committee for decision and action. And that is a long-standing procedure within the authority. And in terms of road safety, Councillor Singh, you say that we can easily access funds. We already access all available funding. If you are aware, don't shake your head, if you are aware of funds that we could access that we haven't, then I would be very grateful for that information. But I can assure you that in terms of accessing and partnership working with the police and other organisations, this authority has an excellent track record. And we particularly work and give priority to working with primary and secondary schools within the borough and have regular road safety initiatives, and that takes a form not only specifically on road safety, but around cycling initiatives and other educational programmes. So, Madam Mayor, I move the amendment and in the spirit that Councillor Singh set out, I have every confidence that this will be unanimously endorsed by the authority, by the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Councillor Rowland, you was second.
Madam Mayor, I second and reserve my right. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gittings, you indicated next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to support this amendment as Chair of SEPT and also Chair of the Fire Authority, and also to thank Councillor Singh for raising this issue. I think his motion is poorly worded, but I agree with a lot of the sentiments of what he was driving at, because it is a shameful statistic that 5 people on average die on Britain's roads every year. Scores are seriously injured, life-threatening injuries, and for those that is 5, if I've averaged of 5, is 1,500, over 1,500 people are killed on Britain's roads every year in road traffic collisions. So that's an average of 5 people dying per year on Britain's roads. Per day, sorry, a good start. 5 people per day and 1,500 a year. But this, and you know, in terms of Berkshire, and in terms of the fire service, they are often the first at the scene of these tragic incidents, often involving pedestrians, as in the case of Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins. Over half those killed and injured on Britain's roads are vulnerable road users, pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcyclists, and that's a shameful statistic. And in terms of the fire service, we can guarantee that 75% of calls they'll be there in 10 minutes, which is fantastic as a service. But they then have to deal with the consequences, extricating people from the wreckage and dealing with also people with serious injury. And the cost to the NHS and other public services of these accidents is vast. So this is a massive problem, as Councillor Page said. The government, successive governments, but in particular this government, I think, have done very, very little to address the issue. And cuts to public services and cuts to funding haven't helped, Councillor Singh. But in Reading, we bid for as much money as is available. And on the issue of road safety, we have been awarded getting on for 5 million in terms of improving cycling safety by putting in segregated schemes and other measures to try and protect cyclists and other vulnerable road users as much as problems. So the measures proposed in the amendment, I think, will make a difference, particularly the ability to crack down on speeding and other antisocial driving and behaviour within the borough, and to hand out penalties to that effect, and also to carry on our work around schools with school streets and those type of measures. But I think more importantly, I think it's a wider issue. I think we do need driver education, better driver education. Most people in this room may well have taken their test many years ago. I know since I took my test, the number of cars on the road has almost tripled, certainly more than doubled. Cars are 30% bigger and a lot faster. But there's no need for us to have refresher courses, retesting, any of that type of thing at the moment under legislation. I think this is a big problem. So if anything, as a council and also as a wider community, I think driver education is really important. I mean, recently there's been introduction of the new highway code with priorities around road users. And I'm not going to be unfair to people, but I guarantee that if I look around this room and ask people, most of us drive, how many people had actually read the highway code or been acquainted with it, I'm not certain there'll be a great number of people. So I think this is an issue right across society for people who are driving, but also obviously for councils to make sure we've got the policies in place, as Councillor Page is proposing, to tackle this issue. So I fully support this motion. And so I do thank Councillor Singh for raising it and for us having a debate tonight. But I'm afraid his government has been failing in this area. I mean, the Police and Crime Commissioner for the Thames Valley said that told me recently that he was developing a Thames Valley road strategy. Well, that can't be before time, because there are a lot of accidents on our roads in the Thames Valley. We've got motorways running through the M4, M34, A34. We've only got to turn on the radio every day to hear of collisions, and also within our towns and on our country roads. So it's a really serious issue. But as I say, I hope we can support the amendment that's been moved.
Thank you, Councillor Gittings. Councillor Williams, I had you next. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I think there's a bunch of other hands up. I'll talk quickly. I'd prepared some words on the original motion, and now I'm going to have to think of a few words for Councillor Page as well. I'm sure I can think of a couple. Thank you. Like Councillor Gittings, I'd like to thank Councillor Singh as well for his motion tonight, the original motion. He's right to raise the issue of road safety. Residents do all the time. And as I think Councillor Page said, the council is not responsible for crimes like speeding, but it is responsible for setting the environment in which people do drive dangerously. There's no one here, I don't think, who would claim the council has yet done all it can on keeping our roads safe. We don't yet have all the 20-mile-an-hour zones we need, such as one outside Reading College on King's Road, just as we have outside other places of education. We don't have all the physical infrastructure we need to keep our roads safe. Those on TSUB will know that if residents want their road made safer, there's a list they can be put on. We don't have enough support yet from the council for schemes like more school streets. We don't have a council making positive, practical, forward-thinking moves like considering how low traffic neighbourhoods could work in Reading. We don't even have an up-to-date and radical local travel plan to set the traffic conditions in Reading. And so the principle behind this original motion was entirely supportable, Madam Mayor, albeit the wording was a little vague and perhaps a bit disappointing. We can write to people, certainly. Both the motion and the amendment suggest that, although members never see those letters, we never see the replies, we never see any action. But while there still are some, Councillor Singh might consider writing to his fellow Conservative, the Police and Crime Commissioner. I'd agree very much with Councillor Page that, like, I think it's Wandsworth Council that are trialling taking control of fines for speeding drivers, keeping that money, reinvesting it into road safety initiatives, which I think Councillor Page's amendment calls on everyone to support. I'm sure we will. I'm sure the various initials in this will as well, the CC, the PCC. Has the council done everything it can on road safety? No, not yet. Does the original motion take us much further forward? Not really. Did it take us backward? No. It was well meant and it was well argued. Councillor spoke well. Does the revised motion do a great deal? Not really. But we can support either this evening, but we wish we were supporting some radical change rather than what feels like more of the same. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Carnell, I have you next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You may not know, I only just beat you into the chamber tonight because I was held up by a traffic accident. I sincerely hope it was a damage-only accident, but it has a wider knock-on effect to the local community, air quality and the like. And as we know, we don't want any accidents that are avoidable. This may well have. And but Councillor Singh's original motion is called for some positive action. This amendment, I'm afraid, calls for very little positive action. Councillor Singh made a plea for a non-political response. This amendment is clearly political and I will not be supporting it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Carnell. Councillor Moore, I have you next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Singh and Councillor Page for their motion and the amendment. I think it's very healthy we in this chamber are discussing road safety as it's such a big issue. I think it's probably sad this topic has been brought up in this room multiple times since we started meeting in this chamber and probably in the last Civic Centre as well, and the issue has not improved. I'd like to, one thing that has changed though, and this is covered in both the motion and the amendment, is the change to the e-scooters on our road, which is, you know, as in theory is not a bad, they're not a bad idea, but as Councillor Page points out, there's this horrible grey area and where you can buy them, but they're not actually legal to ride unless there's a hire scheme, which is, I think, hopefully we'd all agree that grey area needs to be cleared up pretty much immediately. And I would certainly suggest that part, support that part in Councillor Page's amendment. Another part is actually, which I like in Councillor Singh's motion, but it doesn't really go far enough. The amendment is around keeping pressure on the police as well. And I realise we had the policy committee and that was very well received. But I think I'd like that to be more than an annual event where we remind the police of their obligations towards residents. And I realise we have the Safe Neighbourhood forums, but even at the West Reading Safe Neighbourhood Forum, which I attended last week, sadly, the police officers reiterated that neighbourhood policing is being cut again, which is not helpful to this scenario. But so actually, the police are under the cosh, and the council's under the cosh. But but this issue has not gone away. So I would like to see still putting pressure on the police to try and prioritise neighbourhood policing if possible. One thing that has dropped out of the amendment, which I think is quite good from the original motion, is asking the council to participate in the Road Safety Week annual campaign. I realise the amendment talks about local road safety initiatives, but there's no reason I don't think the council can't take part in the National Road Safety Week as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Singh, do you wish to speak on the amendment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's very typical, sadly, of Labour councillors to kick the ball in the long grass, change the goalpost, and parcel out the blame. Councillor Tony Page is much senior to me, but don't mind educating him on his own obligations. Local government has obligation to reduce accidents under the Act of 1998. And you are the main agent to reduce that and take that action. While you like to talk about courtesy, while you like to abdicate your responsibility.
Councillor Singh, could you address your remarks through the Mayor, please?
Yeah, and you're here to solve problems for Reading residents. You're here to solve problems for Reading residents. Your job is to.
Sorry, Councillor Singh, I'm not sure you understand me. Could you address your remarks to the Mayor?
Yeah. Madam Mayor, we are here to solve problems. We are here to be accountable. Madam Mayor, we are here to make sure lives on Reading roads are saved, and we do whatever we can in our capacity. Tomorrow, God forbid, an accident happens while we play this political football in the chamber. Who would be accountable for that? Have you done everything in your capacity to make sure there's road safety? Is the question you should ask yourself. Do a soul searching when you go back home, tuck yourself in the bed, spend few minutes reflecting on that. Therefore, I would also ask the council to rethink on these amendments, not make it a political football when it comes to lives on the roads of Reading. The residents trying to get to work, trying to get to college, trying to get to meet families and friends deserve to feel safe on our roads. But Madam Mayor, the Labour councillors have shown for them their egos, their locked ideological position takes priority over the safety of Reading residents. Today you had a choice to be complacent.
Councillor Emberson, is that a point of order?
Can I ask a point of order, Madam Mayor? Can you ask Councillor Singh to restrain his comments? I actually lost my young cousin last year in a road traffic accident, so I find what you're saying outrageous, and I'd like that he withdraws those comments.
Thank you, Councillor Emberson. Councillor Singh, would you like to withdraw the personal remarks that you have made?
Yeah. All right, I withdraw that comment. Today,
I'd like you to consider that for the rest of your speech as well, please.
Yeah. Today, Labour councillors had a choice to choose to be complacent or show leadership on road safety. I'm afraid, Madam Mayor, the cost of Labour councillors' complacencies will result not resolving road safety. I'm afraid we will be not supporting any amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor McElroy, I'd like you to speak next, I think.
I'll be quick. The Office for Health Improvement and Disparities estimates that the annual mortality in the UK to do with human-made air pollution is roughly equivalent to between 28,000 and 36,000 deaths every year. It's estimated that between 2017 and 2025, the total cost to the NHS and social care system of air pollutants, for which there is more robust evidence for an association, will be 1.6 billion. Just wanted to raise the point that any discussion about road safety and traffic planning that loses focus on that would be missing a trick.
Thank you, Councillor McElroy. Councillor Borston, I had you indicating next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I was in my 20s, my 4 cousins and my aunt lost their father. He was my uncle. He was killed in a road traffic collision on his way to work. In a lorry driver had gone over his hours. He'd turned off his tachometer or whatever it's called, and he fell asleep at the wheel and he ploughed into the back of my uncle, smashing him with the rods going through like spears, and my uncle's car went up in a ball of fire just absolutely horrendous. I pass on my condolences to Councillor Emberson. There is nothing comparable. It's really impossible for us to appreciate, even though through you, Madam Mayor, it's a close relative. The impact on my cousins and my aunt has been huge, and that was from when I was in my 20s. Thank you to Councillor Gittings, through you, Madam Mayor, for acknowledging the seriousness of this topic. I'm disappointed, though, Madam Mayor, by Councillor Page, his reaction, because my colleague, Councillor Singh, brought this motion to Council to try and make a difference to our town's residents. They don't give a jot about political point scoring. They want to be safer. We should do better. And I hope Councillor Page will think on his response and realise that he could have done better and should have. I'd like, since my colleague submitted the motion, I'd like to raise two things that have happened this week, which just bring to mind that the council must do better. One event was an e-scooter who a driver, one of my residents, was in Caversham Road at the pedestrian crossing. The lights had gone red for the pedestrians, and my resident started pulling away, and an e-scooter shot out of nowhere in front of his car. He had to do an emergency stop. The e-scooter rider scraped the front of the car, but managed somehow to get away without falling off. It could have been much, much worse. Another incident was a couple of retired pedestrians in Broad Street. Councillor Rowland spoke well on the subject this morning, earlier this evening. They were outside Boots, and they were just about to move forward when a Deliveroo rider, they're unsure whether it was a normal bike or an electric bike, whizzed past. If she had moved forward, she would have been hit, and the Deliveroo cyclist and she, well, who knows how badly they would have been injured. But when you're retired, well, frankly, the older we all get, the harder any injury is on us. And it is a pedestrian zone, but it isn't enforced. The council needs to do better. This motion, original motion, would have helped move things forward. It would have improved the lives of our residents. The political posturing does sweet FA.
Councillor Balston, remind you of language, please.
I apologise. Initials I thought were okay. You know, I'd like to be able to go back to my residents and say, I've been to a council meeting, we've made a difference, we as a whole are going to make improvements. I'm going to go away tonight. Frankly, I should have been like that Labour councillor, I can't remember where it was, and brought in some knitting. At least something constructive would have been made if I was doing it for charity. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Balston. Councillor Rowland, you were second, but I have you down to speak now. Is that correct? OK. In that case, I have Councillor Brock next on my list.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we could do with changing the temperature of the debate slightly, as indeed some colleagues elsewhere have tried to do. I think it's important to acknowledge that political disagreements about things are legitimate, and that is part of what we are here in a council chamber to do, and to discuss and to debate and to disagree sometimes and to agree at other times, and to try to do always what we think is best for our residents. Now, there is nothing in this proposed amendment that is especially partisan whatsoever. And I find the sort of accusations that it's somehow political point scoring or football to really be inappropriate, actually. Now, It is an unfortunate fact, and I do commend actually Councillor Singh's intention in bringing this motion. I truly do. I think it's a very important issue for us to discuss, and I think that's exactly what we're doing. I think at the end of the day, the fact that we here on the Labour benches think that the original motion is not a very good motion should be something that I hope that they will pay attention to when we're trying to propose an amendment that we think improves it. The original motion calls for the writing of 2 letters, the participation in a road safety week that we already as a council participate in, by the way, and providing additional information on the website that Councillor Page has explained why this is a difficult thing to do, and actually we already participate in all sorts of schemes for the presentation of data where it's possible. What the amendment seeks to do is to resolve exactly the kind of issue that Councillor Balston raised, that, you know, an issue with an e-scooter in which we as a council have no powers, there's no regulatory framework for these things at all. Something needs to be done about that. Therefore, it's appropriate that we as a council would show leadership and try to put pressure. It's small pressure, it's only Reading Borough Council, but try to put pressure on the government to resolve this situation, to help government understand that something has to be done to codify these things. And in the same way, in fact, we are very willing to take on speed enforcement. You know, I don't want to do it for any reason that's financial to the council. I have said to the police, sat in a meeting with Councillor Page, that we are happy to hand over all of the surplus revenue back to the police. We just want road safety, speeding to be given proper priority. We have the ability to do that. The police choose not to do that because of their own resource constraints. So back us in asking for those powers to be passed down to us. And this is not an amendment that seeks to make some kind of partisan point. It's not trying to turn this into something completely different. We're just trying to be constructive. We're trying to find a way forward that will genuinely mean that this motion and the outcome of the debate tonight results in some actions that are meaningful, that we can all go back to our residents and say, yes, we hear you. E-scooters are annoying. They are a problem. They can be a safety hazard. We need a proper framework. Yes, we hear you. Speeding is a problem on our roads. We need a way of dealing with that. And you need to be aware of the framework and how we might work together to try and change it. So I think this is actually a very good amendment, and I commend Councillor Page for bringing it here tonight. And I would hope actually that people on all sides of the chamber will be supportive of the amendment and recognise that in bringing it, we are not trying to destroy the original intent of the motion. Far from it, we are embracing it and we are seeking to make the outcomes and the actions better. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brock. And I thank you for reminding us that we can disagree in this chamber without being disagreeable. So Councillor O'Connell, I'm confident of your spirit in speaking.
Thank you very much. And yes, I think Councillor Brock has successfully managed to take a lot of the heat out of that, which was also my intention. I would say through you, Chair, that of course the amendment is political, but so was the original motion. We're politicians, it's what happens. So I am no fan of the party opposite. However, I look at this amendment and I see that there is more practical and specific ways forward, actions, than the original motion. I'm particularly liking the practical calling for the government to transfer the powers. And then if the Labour-led council don't use those powers, I will, of course, be criticising you. However, I fully anticipate you will use those powers and we will see a reduction. We've all got awful traffic stories to tell, and Councillor Emberson, I'm very sorry for any distress that you felt this night through careless comments. We would like to see, I was pleased with what you said, that we already take part in Road Safety Awareness Week, as Councillor Moore mentioned. That would be the only thing that we would seek to change about your amendment. But in light of what you said, maybe to emphasise or reiterate our commitment to Road Safety Awareness Week, we will be supporting the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connell. Councillor Robinson, I have you next to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I think one of the biggest problems with this amendment, as I see it, is language. stating it's not political, coming up with deplores the punitive government cuts since 2010, or regrets the fact that the government and Department of Transport are failing, etc., is clearly something that, aimed at the Conservative Party that we would not be happy signing or agreeing to. And a couple of elements of fact here as well. As regards e-scooters, e-scooters are currently illegal on the roads and on pathways. They are classified as a motor vehicle under the Road Traffic Act of 1988, which means that to be used on the roads, they need to be taxed, have insurance and a license. Currently, it's not possible to get insurance for privately owned e-scooters, so only rental scooters in trial areas are covered, and even then you need to be over 16 and to hire these, and restrictions apply to where they can be used. And they cannot be used on public paths, so only can be used on private land and then with the permission of the owner. Details as to the legalities of e-scooters are available on sites such as Thames Valley Police's site, which has advice on e-scooters. In terms of delays in trials, obviously e-scooters are relatively new in the grand scheme of things. And in order to actually see how they work in terms of safety, etc., trials do need to take place. So, we're not going to rush through trials for the benefits of, those that want to see these on the road sooner. But I would say that every single e-scooter that we see on the roads of Reading is illegal. And we knew, and one of the things that we were calling for was obviously...
Councillor Page, you'll have your chance.
Yeah, was obviously, enforcement to be seen to be done. That was the purpose behind Raj's contacting the police to, to get that more visible. I mean, on the streets of Reading, every day we see traffic infringements that really belie, common sense. At the end of Peppard Road on the, by the traffic lights there, literally you have to stand there for, 10, 15 minutes and you will see cyclists going through red lights as an example. Not only is that exceptionally dangerous, it's also illegal. Obviously, I think the maximum fine is up to 1,000 if it goes to court. And, aside from that, it's not only irresponsible, and what about kids watching this behavior from adults doing it? So, there are lots of things. We desperately need more enforcement. We need enforcement over parking. I mean, goodness knows how many times councillors have been asked, about parking or parents parking by local schools, etc. People need more consideration, more care in terms of what they do. I completely agree, though, with Councillor Gittings. Education is key. And the reason I say this is that, as many of you know, last year on January the 29th, the Highway Code was changed with new laws on mobile phone usage, and also laws brought in significant changes to protect the most vulnerable on our roads. A recent survey carried out by the charity Cycling UK found that most drivers were unaware of what the new laws were. And more staggering, 25% of those interviewed or surveyed didn't even know that any new laws had been brought in. So education is key. And again, this was something else that Raj brought in. I thank Councillor Page for this amendment. However, a lot of the wording I think we cannot agree with, so I will not be voting for the amendment as such. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Exactly 5 minutes. Councillor McCann, I think I had you to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few small points. I also do commend Councillor Singh for raising this because it is really important. It's something really important for us to address. I would suggest that possibly this isn't the forum to try to finalise such an important document. If it could be agreed later rather than this rather hyped up environment, that would probably be better with a bit more thought. And with that in mind, I feel like paragraphs 6 and 7 in the amendment feel like suggestions for amendments rather than something that should be included in the document. I would suggest that they should be taken out if this is going to be taken as the final.
So are you proposing an amendment to the amendment? Because I don't think that's constitutional,
no,
Councillor
it's probably
McCann.
not. I'm a newbie. But yeah, so my suggestion is that perhaps this isn't the forum for the
Thank you.
document.
I know this issue is debated many times at Traffic Management Sub. Councillor Ennis, did you wish to speak?
I was going to make the exact same point. I feel like some of our councillor colleagues opposite think this is the first time traffic has been discussed. We have a traffic management panel in which we go through, and to say that we don't get success and that nothing happens, Councillor Williams, you need to be looking at it. You need to go there. Your leader goes there, and there's a lot of discussion, a lot of debate about parking, speeding. I'm quoted in the media this morning about school traffic and school parking, which we are working hard over a period of time to varying degrees of success. To think that this is the first time, bless you, that traffic is being discussed. Get on that. That meeting, that panel sometimes is not that well attended by some of you. So you need to think about that and get there and raise your issues, because we in Southcote, and I'm taking it as a local council, non-political, get contacted and we take them issues to traffic management panel at a regular basis as ward councillors. So I suggest we do that. And that's where the forum may be, where we could discuss that. It's very regular, and there's lots of discussions, lots of debates, lots of motions, lots of public involvement as well. So this is not the first time, Councillor Singh, we're not hanging on your motion here. We discuss these issues, and you know yourself, Councillor Mitchell, because you're a regular attender, and so too Councillor Carnell, and you contribute and contribute well. So it's not the first time. So I think we need to be looking at that, and that's the forum to take as ward councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis. I believe I now have Councillor Mitchell.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much indeed. Not one of us in this room disputes the basic desire to improve road safety and to make sure that the people of this town, in fact, Berkshire, the whole country, are safe on our ever increasingly dangerous roads and pavements. So we will not be voting for the amendment tonight, not because we are not in favour of better road safety. Obviously we are. The fact that all of us listened with a degree of silent respect to Councillor Singh when he was moving the original motion shows how deeply felt and how broadly I feel people were in agreement with the thrust of what he was trying to achieve with the motion. The fact that passions rose, again, endorses how important this is to all of us. And we all have personal stories, no doubt, some far more tragic than others. That said, this, as Councillor Robinson said, we take issue with the amendment, not because of what you're trying to achieve. I would point out that at policy, only this week, or last week, we had the Conservative PCC agreeing that he would be more than happy to give the powers of speeding enforcement to the council, even essentially handed it on to the Chief Constable sitting there. But that is a national decision, and granted, we're Conservative councillors, but where the government is slow, they deserve to be criticised for that and held to account for it. So I can see what you are trying to achieve in the amendment, but as Councillor Robertson correctly said, it is the language here. It's an almost Pavlovian reaction to every issue that seems to come before us that you criticise the Conservative government for being a Conservative government. Punitive, failing. We could go on. Right, yes, write to the Secretary of State, but make it clear you're regretting government inaction. That is highly politicised. There's no denying it. The Leader of the Council says it wasn't political. It clearly is. And so for that reason alone, we won't be supporting this. But I just wanted to make it clear that if you had had issues with the language or the softness or vagaries of the original motion, we would have listened to your technical amendments, your language amendments to achieve what you want to achieve, but without the politics. Councillor Singh appealed for the politics to be taken out of it, and unfortunately, Councillor Page brought it straight back in with a page of politics. And as a result, that's why we as a group will not be supporting the amendment tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I can only take each person to speak once on the amendment, Councillor O'Connell, otherwise we really will be here all night. Councillor Rowland, do you wish to exercise your right to second?
I would, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. Indeed, the debate has certainly solidified the fact that there is everyone in this room that is supporting real action in terms of dangerous driving, in terms of speeding, in terms of the cars, motorbikes, and e-scooters that are causing very serious fatalities, very serious issues throughout our communities. We see our neighborhood policing gone. We see the police unable to actually do those kinds of things, those neighborhood kinds of things where we have people speeding in our neighborhood streets. Madam Mayor, the group across the chamber here has pointed rightly to where a large part of this problem lies, and unfortunately, it lies back with the government in many issues. It lies back with the government in the fact that they have cut funding year on year, and we are left with insufficient police resources. And we are left with insufficient police resources to the extent that our police teams are told that the 4 types of offenses that they most need to attack are issues with seatbelts, with phones, with high speed, largely on dual carriageways, and impaired driving. Those offenses that are most likely to result in fatal consequences. Where does that leave the rest of us? The government is also failing, Madam Mayor, in allowing the vital legislation to drag on, which can come forward through the Traffic Act, which may come in May. I'm not exactly sure. That's what I understand, wherein we can finally find out what we can really do with e-scooters. There's not one of us that doesn't wish for the actual power and the understanding of what we can do with the e-scooters, because the legislation is not there to properly manage them. The government also, Madam Mayor, is failing because it's refusing to allow councils to come in, indeed, and take care of speeding within our towns where we know it and can do it best. Their best offer, Madam Mayor, is to advise willing volunteers to participate in Community Speed Watch, which is a program that's designed to place well-intended volunteer residents at the back end of a speed gun pointed at over a ton of speeding metal driven by a driver that may be illegal, uninsured, or upset, to collect information that can result in a warning letter. We, as this council, can do better. So I understand a lot of the issues that were raised, and I understand the sensitivities perhaps that those across the aisle have in some of the wording that is in this amendment. But the reality is the words may be a bit harsh, but it's the truth. We all deplore the punitive government cuts. That means they have cut back. We all do deplore it, okay? And that's unanimous. If we had enough money from the government, if there were enough resources, that wouldn't be an issue. We regret the fact that they're failing to provide the clarity. Yes, we do regret the fact. I would say to all members in this room, despite the tough language that those across the chamber may think some of this is, that this amendment actually speaks the truth. It speaks the truth of what we need to get across. Unfortunately, the First Amendment, or the amendment brought forward, did not really capture what we need to try to move forward with. And I have absolutely no doubt that this amendment is going to get us closer to finding some of those answers. So, Madam Mayor, that is my statement on that in seconding the motion this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland. Councillor Page, we should just sum up on your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The council lacks no ambition in terms of doing more. The reason we were amongst the first dozen authorities to get moving traffic enforcement powers given to us, with the first cameras going in this month, is because we bid for it early and put a case to the Department for Transport, which they accepted. Through you to Councillor Williams, declaring a 20-mile-an-hour zone and putting in physical measures doesn't necessarily deliver total effectiveness. It requires, as you well know, camera enforcement. And it is the absence of proper camera enforcement and powers to take through the enforcement that is bedeviling the effectiveness of those schemes. And we see that throughout the town. And residents rightly say, well, you've put in humps, but there's still drivers who take them at excessive speeds. And we all know that. We can't do anything more than the physical measures. But what we could do is to have the enforcement powers. And that underpins a whole raft of measures that we've already put in place. And Councillor Robinson had the temerity to suggest that the trials should be delayed even further or extended even further. There's no shortage of evidence. The reports, the recommendations, I know for a fact, have already been compiled by the officials at the DFT. It is ministerial intransigence that's delaying bringing this forward. And highway code is referenced. Who vetoed a campaign funded by the DFT to promote the new highway code? One Grant Shapps, one Anne-Marie Trevelyan, one Mark Harper. And you have the gall to say this isn't political?
Councillor Page, through the chair.
It's your ministers, through you, Madam Mayor, it's your ministers that are delaying action, effective action that would give us the powers. Councillor Baldwin grumbles about the e-scooter, gives us a good example. We see them daily. We would like to do more. We would like the powers to be able to deal with that. The police aren't going to do anything because they don't know what the powers or the framework is. So lobby the government, tell them to get off their backside and to bring forward the necessary regulations. And finally, Madam Mayor, can I just endorse the comments that Councillor Ennis made about the regular discussions we have at Traffic Management Subcommittee, underpinned by a concern across all parties about road safety and associated problems. So whilst we may have the occasional debate here in the council chamber, 5 times a year, the Traffic Management Subcommittee deals with those issues, and councillors across all political persuasions bring their concerns and discuss them at that subcommittee. So, Madam Mayor, this resolution encapsulates the way we want to take things further forward to give us the powers to deliver for our residents in an effective way. And it requires the government to give us the powers, and we'll use them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Page. I will now put the amendment to the vote. So all those in favour of the amendment, please show. Okay, and those against the amendment? Thank you. And any abstentions? I don't think there were. I don't know what your whipping operation is in the Greens, but thank you. I'll take one abstention there. Thank you. I'm sure your group will discuss it with you later. Councillors, we have now got an amended motion before us. Does anyone wish to speak to the amended substantive? Thank you. In which case, I will be inviting Councillor Singh to sum up the debate, and I would ask you to sum up with the same respect that other councillors in this chamber afforded you in their remarks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The intent of the original motion was to do everything what within our power. That was the intent. Without costing money to the council, look at the innovative ways, find alternative options, and take a step in a right direction. In a right direction to show this council do really represent Reading residents. Council chambers are not Westminster. We are not full-time politicians. At least I am not. We put the residents' needs first. And if you're not able to deliver that, I do understand, Madam Mayor, Labour councillors have brute majority. They can walk over all over us. They can do whatever they want. But the intent was this for this motion was to do something which is within our power and send that message to the residents. I'm afraid we failed doing that. Instead, we made it political by asking to delete everything after council and put an amendment with highly politicized comments. Afraid and saddened. Well, we had the opportunity to do something. I would have appreciated all the feedback, how we could have made it better as councillors. I think it's a missed opportunity. I think it's an opportunity which we could have delivered something, but I'm afraid this is highly disappointing. I would like to thank councillors, Green councillors and Lib Dem councillors for their comments and feedback, because that was genuinely less political where compared to what been said by Labour councillors. And that's all from my side, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. As politicians, we now have a vote, because that's how politics works. I would like to call all those in favour of the amended substantive to vote, please. On favour? Those against the amended substantive? Thank you. And any abstentions about the amended substantive? No, I think there were no abstentions this time. Thank you very much, councillors, for your attendance this evening. If I ask you to wait a moment as we leave the council chamber, thank you.